Hello and welcome to The Way It Is. I'm your host, Barnard Sims, pen name Barnard The Barber. This is Women's History Month, and we wanted to keep it going with the energy of having a month full of fantastic women to come on and enlighten us as they always have. We wouldn't need a Women's History Month if we told the truth about the origins of everything that has went on in this world. We were honest all year. And so today is no different. We're gonna we have the but first let me do the little business. If you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Barnard The Barber so we can continue creating content like this to inform and empower our community. But I won't waste any more time talking about stuff like that because we have a very special enlightened guest. She's the founder of Time with Ty, an author, a lifestyle brand created to share her passion for marriage, education, family, self-care, and community. And I met her at Black Ink, Black Writers Workspace Festival in New Orleans. And what resonated with me beyond your spirit, you could tell your energy, is one of the things you said you like to invest time in creating a community we want to belong to. And that took me back to Dr. King's inspiration, Gandhi, and in saying that we should be the change that we seek. And so when you said that, invest in time in creating the community you want to belong to. Now, that's what I read you said. Now, sometimes I have said that I read something, somebody said, that's not actually true. But anyway, thank you for coming on. And how are you today?
I am doing pretty good today. Thank you for having me. And I will say that you are accurate. I did say that. I do say that because I got tired of people sharing that we should just accept things the way that they are.
Right.
Right. And it was like, but wait, what? Why do we just have to accept things? Why can't we change things and do things differently if we want different results?
Right. So how may I refer to you for the remainder of this interview?
Ty? Definitely. Yes.
Okay, Ty. Okay. All right. Well, Ty, let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us about your growing up, your parents, or anything you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. So let's see, gosh, from the beginning, a couple of fun facts about me. I'm a Christmas baby. And I like to say that I was my mom's best Christmas gift ever. There are years that maybe she questioned that. I don't know. I have a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest of three. We have some step siblings in there from a marriage and right. I have always lived in New Orleans, so NOLA native. Graduated, went to high school, college here, got married, been married for 23 years now, which is insane. That time just passes so quickly. I'm a mother of 6. So my children are 21, 19, 17, 15, 13, and 4. And when you asked how you should refer to me, what's cute is about a year and a half ago, my youngest, she'd be like, well, Ty's your nickname, right? Like your real name is Mom, but Ty's your nickname.
Yeah. The identity, like the duality of being a mom, and you can't be anything else in some people's eyes. But I see you're expanding way beyond just one brand and exploring the more options and bettering your community with a lot of things that you're doing. And I read up on a lot of things you do, but I still want to stick to. So you grew up in New Orleans, and
yes,
you always lived in New Orleans. Were you there doing? Everybody associates New Orleans with the Hurricane Katrina experience. How was that going through that?
So, like most people, we evacuated. But what was interesting about our story is that I was on a women's retreat that Friday right before Katrina, and that Saturday morning we wake up and we, like, a couple of the husbands are calling saying, hey, we think you need to come home, we think this is a can get serious. And we were actually in Bay St. Louis. So we were even, right? And so we rush home, we hop in the car, we head to my sister's in Texas. We packed enough clothes for the weekend because, like everybody else, we thought we'd be gone for the weekend. And it was clearly months later before we could return home. And like with with anything in life, there are definitely tragedies. There are definitely, some things trauma that people experience, but then there is also a renewal, a rebirth, right? That can come out of those situations as well. So we definitely see both. I think that most residents of the city would say that clearly it was traumatic, it was a tragedy. There are some policies that existed at the time that were completely off kilter, right? But at the same time, there was a period of really like the communities looking so much different, where you really did have neighbors helping neighbors and consoling each other and helping each other. The way that, like, so I know that it can exist, right? I know that it can happen. It's unfortunate that it usually takes a tragedy to make it happen.
Right, right. And as the barber, looking at it from way over in Georgia, there were young men who moved here from New Orleans, displaced, and to the locals in our community, just to be honest, it was a joke. And they would like calling him water boy and stuff. And he would laugh with him because he looking for new friends. But then when everybody left, he talked to me as the barber. He's like, man, those people think this is funny. But he said, I don't even know where my grandmama is. And I was like, wow. And that's when, to get back to your mantra of like being the change we seek, I started to realize the next time somebody says something insensitive to somebody, if I'm silent, I'm complicit. And I'm doing more damage by not saying, hey, leave this man alone. He had to make new friends and he's trying to be nice to y'all. But y'all, he don't know where his grandmother is. He doesn't have any idea where he grew up down the street from his grandmother, his uncles, and all this. So yeah, there's a resilience that I felt when I was in that space in New Orleans for my first time crossing over into, crossing over into it. But just to meet you, I felt the presence of the spirit of the city that still lives and still striving. And so let me see. I see a couple of things I want to get on, but there's some things that you say your passion, like marriage. And I heard you say you've been married 23 years. And I think, so you talk about rules. I think we need to come up with a rule that if you get over 25 years, you should be able to draw a check from it, because marriage is hard.
I do not oppose that. I will support that. Marriage is hard. Like anything else in life, right? It takes work and you have to invest time and energy and effort into it. One of the things that I like to share with people about marriage specifically is that sometimes we get confused and we think that oh, well, it shouldn't be hard, or it shouldn't, right? It should just be easy if you love each other. But we are not, when we get married on that day, we are not the people that we will end up being at the end of our lives. We are continuously growing and changing. And if you marry the right partner, they are there to help you along the way, right? So my husband can tell me in a way that, sometimes I need to hear that I've taken on enough. I can't take on any more projects because I am at my capacity, right? And it doesn't feel good when it's something that I want to do, but I have to say no because he is right that I'm overextended, and then it impacts everybody else in my household, right? Or, I like to share that my husband is a very quiet, like laid back, calm kind of guy who would not do half of the stuff that we do if it were not for me. Right? So your partner actually is like helping you to grow into the person that you were created to be. And that growth doesn't feel good all the time, right? Like
Mm-mm.
so so by nature, I do think that it does again require some work. However, as a Christian, I believe that God ordained marriage. And if you believe that, and if God called you to this, I also don't think it should be mediocre. Like God doesn't call us to mediocrity,
Right, right.
right? So I'd really like to share with other people ways that we can invest in our marriages to keep them healthy and strong, to model for our children in our community, like what this can and should look like. Because for our spouse, we should be modeling God's love for us,
Mm,
right?
right.
A lot of us, right? We sometimes we fall short on that.
Mhm. Yeah. Amen. I know I do. I know I do. That's, but I'm something two things you said in that I want to go back and revisit. It's like the power of no sometimes, because I don't know if it's just women in general sometimes take on, and men too, but I noticed that women are more like it's harder for them to say no in certain situations. Like, my wife looked to me to say no for something that she don't want to do. And I'm like, no is accessible to you too. so you talked about that in self-care, like bringing your whole self into a marriage. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So with that note, I will say that as one of the things I think as women that we can do is to continuously put other people and other things before ourselves. Right. And so and for various different reasons. Sometimes it is because, someone has a struggle with acceptance or wanting to belong. Sometimes it's being able to empathize with this other person and realizing that if they are asking you for help, they must really need it.
Mhm,
And so you don't want to turn somebody away,
mhm.
right? There are lots of different reasons why it can be difficult to say no. However, um when we certainly look at the realm of self-care and giving our best self to other people, including ourselves, that no is a requirement. But one of the things I remember when we first got married, my husband, some of his friends wanted to go out, and he was like, oh no, Ty doesn't want me to go out, she wants me to stay here with her, right? So we help each other out.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and just like back to self-care, one of the things that I think as women, as mothers, that we need to do is to redefine motherhood to include self-care and self-compassion. Right. Because we will pour and pour and pour and pour until the cup is empty and there is like nothing left. We're scraping the bottom. We give spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially. Right. And one of the things that really has been put on my heart recently is that just this reminder that we are modeling for our kids how to be and how to treat us. So if they see mom continuously pour out herself and do all of the things, it gives our boys unrealistic expectations of their future spouses. Well,
Ooh.
my mama did it, right?
Ooh, I might have used that
Ah.
term to myself. Oh, that was deep.
Or we have our daughters looking at us and saying, oh, if that's what being a mom looks like, I don't want to be a mom.
Mm,
Right.
right.
So we need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, which is kind of what I share about with time with Ty and like how I do these things. And I am a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool my children and I serve my community and I invest in my marriage and I practice self-care because I need to do those things.
Now, you need to do those things, but I have to ask, in what order do you prioritize those things?
So one of the I'm also like an avid reader. Love audiobooks. One of the best quotes I heard from an audiobook before was that there is no valedictorian of life,
Okay.
right? So that when you look at your priority list, you can decide in this season, in this quarter, in this month, this week, however you need to break it down, my top 3 priorities are, and you do those things. Right. And you can look at like number 4, 5, and 6 and be like, those aren't even getting touched. So essentially, like I'm saying, I'm getting an F in 4, 5, and 6 because right now I need to work on 1, 2, and 3. And so it changes, and it can change, by the day, the week, the month, the quarter. We, like to say that when we were in baby season, right, that all of our priorities changed to navigate life with a new little one, with the lack of sleep that I knew that mom would have with, right? So those priorities do change based on what's going on in your life at the time.
Oh, that's great. I wouldn't expected that. I thought you was gonna go by the textbook, but it varies depending
It varies.
on the
Yes,
season. Yeah,
absolutely. I
yeah.
believe in structured flexibility, right? So we need some structure in our lives, but we need to be flexible enough to, accept and kind of go with the flow and be able to, change the order of things based on what happens. If there is a car accident, clearly your priorities are going to change.
Right.
And you have to be flexible enough in your structure to accommodate for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's be a lot. You gave me a lot to think about there, but the importance of I see one of the things your points is the importance of sleep, and since you touched on that, I I'm needing a little sleep myself now. But could you touch on that a little bit?
Sleep impacts every area of our lives. Sleep, if you are sleep deprived, you are more likely to indulge in all of the things that like you work hard not to, right? So it's so much easier to overeat, to overshop, to lose your temper, to kind of fill in the blank, any of those things when you are sleep deprived. It impacts your health in so many different ways. There's a great book called Why We Sleep. I think Matthew Walker, don't quote me on that one, is the author. He also has a master class that's phenomenal. And then I happened to see there was a big sleep study that just was published recently, and it talked about like when you have enough sleep that and they give you like qualifiers for enough sleep, but when you're getting enough sleep, it actually adds years to your life, about 2.5 for women and about 5 for men,
Hmm.
right? So again, with everything that you're working on, I really try and encourage people to start with sleep. Make sure that you're getting a good quality amount of sleep, and that number is going to be different for people, right? So it's not, like the average is like, oh, you should get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. There are times where, again, during whatever season, right, that you're consistently getting 6.5 hours of sleep, but you wake up well rested, you can function throughout your day, you're not using sleep aids to fall asleep, you're getting good quality sleep when you are asleep. If that's where your body is and your circadian rhythm is, that's where you are. There are some people who need 9.5 hours of sleep a night, right? And if that's you, make sure that you're getting that amount of sleep because it's going to make everything else that you do that next day that much easier.
And for me, it's like I know you're telling the truth because when I don't get enough sleep, I can't think, I can't do this. It's like a computer that needs to unplug for a while and reboot
Exactly.
to see things
Mhm,
fresh and new again. So that's very
mhm.
valuable information that you're sharing. That you do things like that all the time in your retreats. Do you talk about these things individually in the different retreats that I saw that you do?
Yes, so I actually have a retreat coming up in May for women, which I'm super excited about. And it really is a time to rest. And so we talk about different types of rest and different ways that you can incorporate rest into your life. So it could be setting your phone to every 45 minutes to an hour to remind you to shut off your computer and just close your eyes for 2 minutes, right? To play a song that is going to get you out of whatever space that you are in at the moment, right? And bring you to a place of peace. So then you can go back and engage, refresh and anew. We will have some different people there as well, just to talk about ways that we as women need to really take care of ourselves. And you'll be able to, we'll have like a pocket of time where you can just like schedule the appointments, right? Because it's one thing, like you need to schedule the appointments, but making time in your day to do that, again, it's one of those things that falls to the bottom of the list. And so before you know it, it's been 4 years since you've been to the doctor or a dentist, or, you know, had a proper bra fitting or whatever it is, right? So it really does provide a space for women to, one, rediscover who they are, because it's easy for us to lose ourselves in the roles that we play, and forget what we like, whether it's what we like to eat or drink or how we like to rest or what hobby. So a space for rediscovery, for prioritizing rest and just giving you some time to be without, you know, like following the clock or, you know, driving somebody here or there, and just some really good fellowship.
Yeah. And I'm saying from my own testimony, I noticed I can be at home with the kids. We have 3 kids, and they sitting there and they don't ask me for anything. And the moment my wife walks through the door, mama, mama, mama. And so I'm like, hey, why didn't y'all? You know, but so this women's retreat, are you good? Can you give us more information on that, for people who may be out of the time zone, but where and how can they find out information about that?
Sure. So you can visit the website, timewithty.com. In the menu bar, there's a tab called Time to Rest. And in there, it has details. So the retreat is May 19th to the 21st in New Orleans. There is a beautiful retreat facility in the, like in right in the suburbs. It's like 15 minutes away from New Orleans. That the grounds are beautiful. The food is absolutely delicious. You'd have a private room to yourself. And on these retreats, I really give women an opportunity to do what they need to do. So we have like 90-minute chunks. And so you'll hear a, you know, presentation or workshop, and then you have about 45 minutes to go and process that information. And if you need a nap, if you need a walk, if you need to meditate, if you need to go to the art therapy room, if you need to cry, if you want to talk to somebody, there's opportunities for you to do any of those things, because I really do believe that as women, we don't make time to do those things often enough. Right. So it's a Friday to a Sunday. There is a 1-day option. If you can't get away for the whole weekend, you can come in just for the Saturday, from like a 9 to 5. So definitely drivable for some people. Yes. So you can go to the website to get more information or register.
Now, is that the only place that you play this self-care bingo, or that's something you promote for
That is
everyone?
something I promote. I think that everybody, and I actually end up having, I have a few different ones. So we have a couple care bingo as well, right?
Yeah.
Where we encourage you to like get the bingo sheet, pick a month and go do as many things as you can do that month. Same thing for women, that you get the bingo sheet and you go and you look at different ways that you can incorporate self-care, because sometimes it's just a reminder that you need, right? You're like, oh, wait a minute. Yes. Instead of pushing through today, I'm really tired. I'm going to go and take a nap.
Mm.
Or, you know, I just haven't spent any time dreaming in a minute. Right. So let me just set my alarm for an hour, or, you know, need to go to carpool or pick up the kids. I'm going to get there 15 minutes earlier and then just sit in the car and just dream for a minute about what I want in life, or what we want the next step to be, or where do I want to go on this family vacation, or what do I really need at the moment.
Oh, okay. Now that's for self-care. I'm interested in giving. Can you give us some examples of like the couples bingo? Because I didn't see that on your website. Can you give us some examples of things to do
Yes.
in that?
So we have everything on that one. It's really cute. There's one where it's like you retell your story. You tell your story of how you met, right? When you ask somebody, when you ask a couple, oh, how did you guys meet? Right? You usually see like the smile come over their face and they kind of look at each other, and it just brings back the nostalgia of what was and what attracted them to each other. So one is like telling your story. Another one is dreaming together, right? So one activity that we do sometimes is I say, okay, you have 10 minutes. If you had $1 million, how would you spend that $1 million? Right. And let them come up with what they would do. And with couples, what I do at that one is I say, after you come up with your list, write down what you think your husband or your wife would do with that list. Right. And when I tell you the number of people who were like spot on with how their spouse would spend that money too, right. And it shows you, one, how well they know each other. But then once you have that list, then I say, okay, but now what can you start to do now? Right. So if one was this vacation to Tahiti, you could say, okay, well, it's going to cost us this much money. We can actually carve out like $50 a month or a paycheck and put it in a special fund to save so we can work on this trip. Right. So like sometimes you have to like really start to think about things without limits and then rein it back in to see how you can start to do things where you are right now.
Right.
Some are to cook each other's favorite meal, or dance, like put on your favorite song or your wedding song or something and just dance. It really is about just being together and creating memories. One is taking a day trip. So, and you can randomly pick something, or there could be this place that you've always wanted to go or that you wanted to go back to,
Mhm.
right? And just making it happen.
Hmm. Now that's interesting because most couples argue over finances. I don't know. You talk about giving them $1 million. Hey, wait a minute. I wanted a motorcycle. So, oh, so I did too want to ask you. That was good. That was good things that are applicable to any relationship. Just little
Mhm.
simple things like that. And I thought that was fascinating when I saw that part about the self-care bingo. And now I've been informed about the couples bingo. So I had to
Mhm.
look back on there to see more about, applying those things, because marriage is hard.
Mhm.
People pretend like it's this thing, they focus on that wedding day, but after that organ stopped playing.
Right. So I will share another great tip for marriage is to end up watching a movie together, a movie about marriage, and then having a serious discussion about that movie, right? About the characters in that movie, the mistakes that were made, who you identify with in that movie. A lot of when you look at like most of the movies or where there's conflict, there was a failure, there was some sort of lack of communication, right? It was that one person didn't want to be vulnerable for whatever reason. And maybe it was very valid. Maybe it's because the last time I told you I wanted a motorcycle, you bit my head off. And now I feel foolish, like saying I want a motorcycle, right? Or that it was when I expressed a need to you, you dismissed it. And it made me feel like I can't come to you with what I need. Right. But when you talk about a character like these in the movie, it's different than talking about you, and you're not getting defensive.
Mm.
Right. So then you can have your aha moments and be like, if he had just told her, if she had just told him, things may have been different.
Right. It's good. It's good. And let's see. Is that part of Time with Play, your program with
No,
Time to
so
Play? I'm talking about. I
Time
got
to
time.
Play is a separate endeavor, and this is one of my ways of giving back to the community.
Mhm,
But also like helping yourself, right? So Time to Play is an opportunity for adults to get together and focus on play
mhm,
while learning about great organizations in the city that are doing amazing work. So our inaugural event, we rented out an amusement park here and had an adult night
mhm.
where the adults got to go ride whatever they wanted to ride. And there were tables from these nonprofit organizations and some business sponsors that they could go up and learn about these organizations or what these businesses do. And it was an amazing evening where what I thought would happen, what I wanted to happen, did happen, where people said, I found this new place I could volunteer. I didn't know this place existed. One was there's a early learning center here that the woman who created it, she was looking for an inclusive, diverse, affordable childcare. She couldn't find it, so she created a nonprofit, Early Partners, to end up meeting that need. And one of the attendees said, I think I just found my kid's school. And so it was beautiful to see all of the fruit that came from that. But all of these couples who were there were like, oh my gosh, we had so much fun. We got to ride this, this, and this. And it was great. And that is another way that you like pour into your relationship, right? By creating memories together where it's without the kids, there's no stress, there's no tension. You can just go have fun together.
And that goes in line with your, I guess what you're saying, investing, creating the community you want to belong to. When you was talking about the lady was looking for the kid, what the
Hmm.
school. So
Hmm.
she created the community she wanted to belong to.
She
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
She did. And it has been wildly successful. And it's great because there are definitely so many parents who needed that service, right? Who needed this high quality program for their children, but one that was still affordable,
Right,
right? Because there is that.
right.
Especially when kids are concerned. Um, so yeah, and it was great to be able to not only, get to know Kim and but share what she's doing with other people so that they can either send their kids there, support the school financially, volunteer at the school, and kind of meet the needs to make sure that this continues.
Hmm. That that's I just founded a nonprofit myself. Is Reach One Chess Incorporated. Just founded it, and when you were having that thing, I was like, man, I wish I was in the area so I could get, because you don't know what you don't know till you don't know
Right.
it. So there's so much, and taking this step that I'm just learning and taking my bumps and bruises along the way. But it's good to be able to communicate with people like you who are doing it, who are actually making a difference in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So and you that was let me skip gears here. Parenting with intention. You
Yeah.
expand on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So again, I guess there are several things that I am super passionate about, and this parenting with intention is certainly one of them. And there are a couple of different ways that we do that, and a couple of like resources that I provide to help parents do that. So one is the first children's book that I wrote is entitled The Alphabet of You. And it is a book filled with positive vocabulary, adjectives that we should be using to describe our children. It includes the definition, pictures of children doing those adjectives, and the ASL sign. The ASL sign is included so we can normalize teaching our littles the ASL alphabet when we teach them their ABCs, right? So just think about how much more inclusive and how wonderful it would be if they came in contact with a child who was hearing impaired and can communicate on some small level, even if by spelling out each word, right? So there's that. The imagery in the book is intentionally inclusive because our world is inclusive and we all need to see each other in a positive light. And one of the ways that this book helps is that it's geared to 3 to 7 year olds. So parents are reading the book to their children. So they are broadening their vocabulary, broadening their worldview so that they are seeing people who don't look like them in a positive light as well. And so this, and then for the other thing with the book is that the vocabulary, it's a large vocabulary, right? It's robust. We don't use little words in the book intentionally because I wholeheartedly believe that if you teach little people big words, they learn big words, right? So when we play a game, probably since, I don't know, for the last 2 years, after whatever game that we are playing, whoever does not win congratulates the winner. And so, to hear a little 2-year-old say, congratulations, right? It's just like the cutest thing in the world, right? But she can say that word, she can use it in proper context because she was taught that word, right? So that the other kind of goes back to this whole like self-care, redefining motherhood. So the first book that I wrote was it's entitled A Mother's Reflection, and it's this book that kind of walks you through the mother you had, the mother you are, and if you're being the mother you want to be. And there's a big emphasis on self-care in there. And for me, the book was created because in 2016 for Mother's Day, I woke up, my kids had made breakfast in bed, and all written these little cards like what I love and appreciate about you. From my 5-year-old, it was super sweet. From my 14-year-old, I felt like an afterthought. And I was like, you know what? I reject this. I do too much for you. I do too much to feel like an afterthought. And I think that there are a lot of women who end up feeling that way, right? And it's not right. It's not fair. It's not, we should not be doing that. So I made a list of 10 things I would love or appreciate like being done, and I left. I went to the mall, I went to lunch, I went and got my favorite ice cream and sat on the lakefront and really reflected on my role as mom. And if I was being the mom I wanted to be, and like why or why not, had I taught my kids what I really wanted them to know, was I creating the memories that I wanted my kids to have. And it was this great moment of introspection and reflection that caused me to then change some of the ways that I was parenting, to be more intentional about that. And I think that when we're expecting and we're excited, we think about the parent we want to be, but then like the baby comes and you're sleep deprived and you don't think about other stuff, right? That just doesn't happen. And another baby comes and you wake up, 10 years later and you're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? Right. And so there's a journal for dads that will be coming out. The target is around Father's Day, that does the same thing for dads, where they get to think about their relationship with their dad, if they're being the dad that they want to be, and if not, why not, and what needs to change. And so some of that is a realization that, you know what, I may have to be more of a disciplinarian than I want to be. Like, I want to be the fun dad. I want to be this, I want to be like this, but that's not what my kids need, right? That's not what my wife needs from me, right? So how can we come together and parent with intention to honor and respect both of our roles in this house, to make sure that my kids are asking me for things and not just my wife, to make sure that there is a cartoon that I remember seeing that I lived for so long. And it was like the husband says, okay, I'm going to bed. He gets up, he walks upstairs and he goes to bed. The wife is like, okay, I'm going to bed. And then 30 tasks later, she crawls into bed. Right. And I'm like, no. Like, why is she doing 30 tasks and he doing none and the kids are doing none? Let's divide this load and we're each doing 5 tasks and then we can each go up to bed. Right.
That's right. And when you took me back when talking about the women's retreat, and I went to like a men's mental health conference in the Carolinas That was
Nice.
Charlemagne the God and the guy from the Tyler Perry movies. I can't think of his name right now. But when they left the room, when you spoke about fathers, we didn't have any women in the room, just men. And when we were really being honest, our biggest fear is failing as fathers, especially men with daughters and not being what they need or what they need to see so that they will make the right choices later on in life. And so that was when you were talking about that for fathers, it's challenging for men as well.
Mhm. And
That's
so one of the things with the journal that I think is really great is I ended up polling lots of like women for the women's journal, a lot of men for the men's journal. And what I discovered and was really surprised about was that there are so many men who want help. They
Mhm.
were like, I don't know where to go. There are like all of these support groups for women, but there's not a support group for men, or there's one, and if it's not a good fit, then where do you go? And or I don't have a good support system. Like my friends aren't parenting or fathering the way that I want to do it. And I'm looking for assistance. There are some men who had amazing dads and who have a great blueprint. There are some other men where it either there was no dad or it was not a good dad, and they are doing their darndest not to repeat those mistakes. But again, there's not a lot of, there's not as much support, I will say, for dads as there is for moms.
right. And most men, we don't want to be vulnerable because it can be used against you. And if you grow up as a young boy crying, they say, shut up before I give you something to cry about.
Cry
I'm like,
about.
I think I'm already crying, so I got something to cry about, but I have to suppress that and walk around like I'm Superman. But actually, my cape has all kind of bullet holes in them, and I can't fly because I can't. I'm not equipped with a phone booth like Superman was to change into his costume. And a lot of
Mhm.
men use their barbers, and I'm saying that as a professional. People come in and pour heavy stuff on me, and then they leave, and I take that stuff home at night with me, and I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, what do we do as men to get that out?
Yeah.
Writing is therapy for me. And so
Mhm.
we always say hurt people. Help
Yes.
healing people
Yes.
can help heal other people. And that's what
Exactly.
you're doing.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
you do. I gotta go back. You were talking about big words for little kids, but
Ooh, yes.
I'm a big kid and I didn't know what a little word was. I think I know what you mean, but you said ASL.
Yeah. Oh, American Sign Language.
American Sign Language. I had to
Yeah.
ask because I
Yes.
don't know. I said if I don't know, I think that's what she's referring to, but I want to make
Mhm.
sure. So that was a
Yeah.
part of the alphabet of you.
Yes. So in the book, again, so you'll have the word itself, the definition, and on the page the ASL, the American Sign Language alphabet sign to show kids. So this would be your A, right? So there's the big letter A on the page, and then there's a A so that you can associate the letter A with the letter A. And one movie that I saw that I really appreciated, I recently saw Creed 3. I'm not sure if you saw it yet. So definitely a great movie. And one of the things I appreciated so much about that movie is that their daughter is hearing impaired. And so they sign throughout the movie. Everybody who interacts with her signs. The grandmother learned how to sign. When they invite a guest to their house, they are in the foyer and they're teaching the guest how to introduce himself to her through
Mhm.
signing and not requiring her to read his lips, right?
Mhm.
So like, and this is the type of inclusivity that is beautiful and the world that we should want to have, to
Mhm.
make sure that if someone in our inner circle is hearing impaired, that we do what we can to communicate with them and not expect them to, well, just read lips faster,
Right,
right?
right. That's the compassionate energy we all need. So
Yes.
yeah. Uh I I didn't get a chance. I don't think I asked you about the virtual book tour.
Yes, this is so exciting. So, this is geared towards children ages 3 to 7. The dates for this is April 17th to the 21st, with a Q&A with the authors on the 22nd. So Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, you'll get to log in and listen to 2 stories. So we'll have one bedtime story at 7 p.m., one story at 7:30 p.m. And you'll be able to ask the author questions if there's time after the story. And we will do that every night that week. And then that Saturday morning for the parents, we have a Q&A with the authors where you can find out more about them, their writing journey, any other books they have coming up. And we have a total of 10 authors from across the country. So we really looked at picking authors from various different states to end up, from the author perspective, to broaden our reach and our audience, right?
Mhm.
But 2, just to kind of connect with different authors from around the country and see what they are writing about. And there were so many amazing books on inclusion and perseverance, on kindness and social emotional learning. So I'm really excited about that virtual book tour, and that too can be found on the website. So if you go to timewithty.com, it actually may not be. I'm in the process of updating the website today to include the registration for the virtual book tour, but you will be able to register soon. It is free for people to attend. You will have, there's a Facebook event for it as well. On the Time with Ty's Facebook page, where you'll be able to read bios of the authors and look at other books that they may have, order books to support them. Another reason for this book tour is really to help us all with marketing, right? So, one of the things that I share is that people are like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe you wrote a book. That is so great. That had to be so hard. And I'm like, I used to think that before I wrote a book. And I
Yeah.
realized that you're like writing the book. Writing the book is hard. Publishing your book, right? Whether it's a traditional or self-publishing, is harder. Marketing your book is hardest. That's where the real work comes in,
Yeah.
right?
It is. It's a grind, and
Ooh.
it's so competitive, in these spaces, especially for authors of color who
Mhm.
I say this all the time. I remember going into my local store and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get my book in here." And then with these celebrities who, I'm not hating on nobody, but these celebrities just write a book, and because they have a following, they'll put theirs up on the thing. And
Yep.
I asked the woman, I said, "Hey, now y'all got Will Smith book in here. Do I have to slap somebody to get my book?" What do you have to do in this? It's like it's this negative connotation. If you're talking about uplifting people, it's hard to be heard. But if you go up and
Right.
slap somebody, hey, they put you up on the shelf and promote it. So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
like, but I don't give into that negative
Right.
aspect of it. It's just a grind. It's what we do.
It is. It is. And so, and the other thing that we can do, which I appreciate you and in your platform, is like looking for ways that we can support and promote and encourage each other,
Right.
right?
Without slapping people.
Without slapping people.
That's my Black Writers Workspace shirt I got on here. Because I found that to be a very resourceful space to ask, questions like I asked, like what is ASL? I'm not
Mhm.
because I was afraid to ask those questions, but then I would go on there and somebody would already have asked the question that I thought was too silly to ask. So it's good to feed off of each other. They say iron sharpens iron, and you're doing a lot to sharpen the community to be the change that you see.
Thank you.
Thank you. We coming up. Let me see. I'm trying to think. You said the women's retreat is in May the
Yes.
19th,
Yes.
and the virtual tour is in April.
April. Yes.
Okay.
So
Anything
virtual
else? I
book.
see you got a full calendar now. We better get the rundown so people can be prepared for these things. So you have any other events coming up soon that you want to talk about or share with us to give us the ups and
So one of the other things, well, okay, so I guess a couple of things, right? So you can purchase the Alphabet of You on either website. So my website, timewithty.com, or there's another website for that book, the alphabetofyou.com. That book is currently being translated into Spanish and English, Spanish and French for our bilingual learners, which I'm super excited about, right? That you'll be able to have the copy in English and Spanish and French and go through and learn all of the words and the definitions that way. So that is coming up, and starting towards the end of March, I will have a couple of other virtual schools visits or some in-person authors visits. So if you are interested, definitely reach out to let me know. And so with those, back to like prioritizing and managing time, with those that I'll only do one or two of those a month as a way to make sure that I am still able to do the other things that I need to do, but that people can still access this information and have this resource for their schools or libraries or barbershops,
right,
right?
right.
So there's the book. Go to timewithty.com. You can subscribe to the monthly newsletter that comes out that shares all of the, kind of things that are happening or going on. I know for the April newsletter, April is volunteer, like National Volunteer Month. So locally, we are compiling just a list of volunteer opportunities for various different organizations that people can go and investigate and find out about and sign up to go and volunteer at places. So we'll be looking for opportunities to volunteer in your neck of the woods. So for people who are not local, right, you can say, oh, well, wait a minute, you know what? They are volunteering at City Park here. We have a park. Can I call my park and see how I can volunteer there? Right. So
Right.
it definitely can spark some ideas on locations that you can end up volunteering at or things that you can end up doing. I know that we have a big autism festival here in April. Well, there are probably autism festivals in April in every state, right? So you can find out where that festival is or when that festival is in your state. So then you can volunteer to participate that way as well. And then, like I said, stay tuned for a June. We'll probably start pre-orders on that Father's Day journal, or that Father's Journal, which is called the Celebration of Fathers. And so, like the Mother's Journal, it's filled with just great information. So it's tips on what a good father is. It's myths on what a good father is, or myths and misconceptions on what a good mother is, right? There are tons of examples from men and women on, things that they are intentionally doing, that back to that intentional parenting, right? How
Mhm.
they are intentionally parenting their kids to make sure that they are creating the memories that they want to have with their children. So
Uh, I'm intrigued about. So, are you fluent in sign language?
I am not fluent in sign language. I do know my alphabet in sign language. I do know a few
Okay.
signs. We ended up teaching our kids some sign language as infants because it was easier for them to clearly, before they can verbalize and use words, they can sign milk or more or thank you or please or pain or potty before they have the ability to say those words. So actually teaching your children sign language actually helps them with communicating quicker.
Man, it helped me. I talk with my hands. I can't get it out without using my hands. But I was interested in finding out is how much sign language varies when you do it in a different language. I was when you were saying it was going to be in French and Spanish. Ah,
Right. Right. So we kept the American Sign Language in all of the same in all of the books, because the whole thought process was that this was for like our bilingual learners who are still learning, right? So there's the English word, the word in Spanish, the definition in Spanish, but still the American Sign Language in
So it
the.
varies a little.
So it can vary.
It
Yes.
can vary.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And the Autism Festival, I have a friend who that's his passion. He has a son and he has a nonprofit here. So the Autism Festival, that's something just happening in New Orleans? Is that something you're affiliated with?
So it's an event that is happening in New Orleans that is created or being put on by there's an Autism Society of Greater New Orleans. And so I'm sure there is an Autism Society of, Atlanta and all of your other major cities, right?
Mhm.
So I would certainly end up looking at the autism societies to figure out what is going on, because in April I think that it's also Autism Awareness Month, right? I think that it's April. It would make sense.
Yeah.
But that there's a lot of attention around autism and events and education and awareness, right? So yeah, so I would definitely encourage people to explore. And I think that, one of the things that we should all be doing is not only supporting something when it's directly applicable to us,
Mm.
right? So I can go and volunteer at the Autism Society Festival, whether or not one of my kids has autism,
Right.
right? Because they need help. And so, or like I can make sure that we have the ASL sign in this book and encourage parents to teach their kids this, whether or not I am fluent or have somebody deaf in the family, right? Like we should really be, again, back to that whole like being the change that you want to see in this world and being inclusive and
Mhm.
looking for ways to help people because they are people.
Right. That's true. That's true. Because if we don't stand with other people in their struggle, then we can't complain when we have Black men on the ground screaming for help and there's nobody left to help because we didn't
Mhm.
stand with anybody else. And
Right.
so that's a good philosophy to live by that you expanded on. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to join us. We are running up on our time. But I will put timewithty.com, your link to your website, when I share this on our socials. But how else can people get in contact with you to further getting this information and knowledge that you are expounding on with us here today?
Thank you. So yeah, definitely go to the website. I do have a very small Instagram presence on social medias. It's at Time with Ty NOLA. Right. So I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram account. So you can check out information there as well. If you wanted to contact me directly, you can email me at Ty, that's TY, at timewithty.com. I certainly enjoy connecting with other people. You will be able to soon schedule a consultation. We certainly didn't talk about homeschooling, but I end up doing lots of homeschooling consultations because it's the route that we chose to go with our family. And I love being able to educate and empower other parents to make the same choice if that's what they choose to do.
And well, boy, I know we're running up on time, but it's like we complain about what other people are teaching our kids when we could do what you're doing and being the change that you want to see and teaching them ourselves. That don't mean they can't be taught the things that we want them to learn. But I mean, you share some of that with us. We're
Mhm,
about homeschooling.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And just so with our kids, like we again homeschooled from the beginning. Our first two were in college. They transitioned extremely well to college, no big issues. And so I tell people all the time, it works. One got like almost a full ride, the second got a full ride. So clearly it homeschooling works. Number three graduates this year and will start college soon. And they're just you're right that you get to decide what it is that you want to teach your kids. So I tell people to start with define education for yourself. And for me, that included how to run a household. So all of my kids know how to run a household, from cooking and cleaning and maintenance to budgeting and finance, because you need to know those things,
Yes.
right? It also includes community service. And we do a lot of volunteer work together as a family, and they each like have their own volunteer projects that they do, because I want them to realize that they can make a difference in this world, right? And that we're all given different passions in life. I think that God places, some people are really, into saving the environment or helping pets or helping the unhoused, or right. And it's not that any one of these issues is less than the other, but that we each have like a pull. Something is on our heart individually, right? And so when we can find a space to go and serve that community, that we can then, and if we all did that, right? Like I just think about like where we would be if each family just picked up a cause and really supported that in a meaningful way, like where we would be as a society.
Well, all right, man. That's great, man. If we all did what you're doing, the world would be covered with good people. And so that's our time, and I thank you. I'm saying that's the way it is, but that's my time with Ty for today. Can you please come back with us if we start doing panels or something?
Absolutely. I would love it.
Yeah, we loved having you here. Thank you so much for coming to share the information. Again, I will share and put your links and stuff on my post so that people can continue this dialogue with you. It's such important and such a blessing to have you here with us today on The Way It Is. That's my time with Ty, and I'm Barnard Sims, and that is The Way It Is. Thank you so much.